Juanita Clausen had coordinated 47 weddings in 3 years, and not one of them had been crashed by her stalker ex-boyfriend until the day she was planning a ceremony for a man the FBI called untouchable. The first sign something was wrong came at 2:47 p.m., 13 minutes before the ceremony, when Marcus, head of security, whispered into his earpiece with the kind of tension usually reserved for actual threats. The second sign was the navy suit she recognized moving through the rose garden, shoving past security like he had every right to be there. Wesley. Her tablet nearly slipped from her hands. 17 unchecked tasks glowed on the screen, mocking her. The bride was in the main house having a meltdown about orchid placement. 300 guests sat in chairs she'd arranged with obsessive precision along the Malibu coastline. The string quartet had played Pachelbel 6 times already. And now Wesley Felton, the ex-boyfriend she'd fled San Diego to escape, was at Warren Scruggs's wedding, shouting her name like he hadn't violated 2 restraining orders already. "Juanita, please. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." She couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Because Wesley being here wasn't just humiliating, it was dangerous. Warren Scruggs didn't tolerate disruptions. She'd watched him ruin a vendor's entire business over a cake delivery that arrived 20 minutes late. What would he do to the ex-boyfriend currently destroying his ceremony? Through the French doors, she saw guests turning, craning their necks. The whispers started immediately. Victoria Langston's mother stood up, face twisted with rage. This was career suicide. This was every nightmare she'd had since leaving San Diego made real. Then Warren moved. The groom cut through the crowd with terrifying purpose, and Juanita's stomach dropped because she'd seen that expression before. She'd seen it when a business partner tried to cheat him. She'd seen it during a venue meeting when the owner tried to upcharge him. She'd seen it in his downtown office during late-night planning sessions when his eyes tracked her movements with an intensity that made her skin burn. Warren Scruggs didn't just walk, he claimed territory. And right now, he was claiming the space where Wesley stood. But he didn't look at Wesley. He looked at her. Their eyes met across 30 feet of manicured lawn, across 3 months of loaded glances and conversations that lasted too long, across every moment she'd told herself she was imagining the way he watched her like a man calculating an acquisition. And Warren smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a man who'd just been handed an excuse he'd been waiting for. "You have 10 seconds to leave my property," Warren said to Wesley, voice carrying despite never rising above conversational volume. His hand moved to his jacket pocket in a gesture that made 2 security guards immediately close in. "I'm not leaving without talking to Juanita. This is between us. You need to back off." Wrong answer. Warren didn't touch Wesley. Didn't threaten him. He simply turned and walked toward Juanita with the certainty of a man who'd already won a game she hadn't realized they were playing. The coordinator's closet suddenly felt very small. Warren filled the doorway, blocking out the sunlight, the chaos, everything except the heat of his attention focused entirely on her. "Do you want him here?" His voice was low enough only she could hear. "No." The word came out broken. "I'm sorry, I don't know how he found out. I'll fix this, Warren's hand caught hers. His palm was warm, his grip absolute, and before Juanita could process what was happening, he pulled her out of the closet, across the threshold, into full view of 300 guests. "What are you doing?" Panic cracked her voice. He didn't answer. He raised their joined hands high enough for everyone to see, turned to face the crowd and the bride now standing at the main house entrance and Wesley frozen between security guards, and spoke 4 words that detonated her entire world. "She's mine now." Before we see how Juanita's world completely unravels, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you don't want to miss what Warren does next. This story gets darker, more intense, and absolutely addictive. The string quartet stopped mid-note. A champagne glass shattered. Victoria Langston screamed something that might have been his name. But all Juanita could feel was Warren's thumb tracing slow, possessive circles on her wrist and the terrible realization that the most dangerous man in California had just claimed her in front of everyone who mattered. The worst part? The part that should have terrified her but instead sent electricity racing up her spine? She didn't pull away. The universe had a sick sense of humor. Juanita had spent 6 months rebuilding her life, brick by careful brick, and it all came crashing down because Wesley couldn't let her have one perfect day. Warren's hand was still wrapped around hers, his grip firm enough to ground her but gentle enough she could break free if she wanted. She didn't want to. That was the terrifying part. 300 guests stared at them with expressions ranging from shock to delight to the particular fury radiating from Victoria Langston, whose wedding had just become the scandal of the season. Wesley found his voice first, of course he did. That's insane. Juanita, tell him. Tell everyone this is crazy. But Warren's thumb traced another circle on her wrist, a touch so deliberate it felt like a brand, and she couldn't make her mouth form words. She'd spent 3 years making herself smaller for Wesley, apologizing for her ambition, dimming her success so he could feel bigger. And now Warren Scruggs, a man who'd built an empire through sheer will and probably several felonies, stood in front of 300 people and claimed her like she was something worth destroying his own wedding for. You need to leave. Warren's voice cut through the chaos with surgical precision. Now. While you still can. The threat wasn't subtle. Security had formed a semicircle around Wesley, hands hovering near concealed weapons that Juanita absolutely believed were there. She'd seen Warren's world over 3 months of planning. The late-night phone calls in languages she didn't recognize. The men who visited his downtown office wearing expressions that suggested violence was always option 1. The way people flinched when he entered a room, not because he was cruel but because he was capable. This is kidnapping, Wesley sputtered, looking around for support that wasn't coming. Someone call the police. She's being held against her will. Warren glanced down at Juanita, eyebrow raised in question. One word from her and this ended. One word and security would remove Wesley and Warren would release her hand and pretend the last 5 minutes never happened. She'd lose her business, her reputation, possibly her freedom if Victoria's family came after her legally, but she'd be free. Except his hand was warm and steady and for 3 months she'd felt him watching her with an intensity that should have terrified her but instead made her feel seen in a way Wesley never managed in 3 years. I'm exactly where I want to be, she heard herself say, and watched Wesley's face crumble with satisfying completeness. Warren's smile was pure victory. He raised their joined hands higher, turned to face the crowd, and the string quartet started playing again like they'd been waiting for permission to embrace the chaos. Behind them, Victoria Langston started screaming about lawsuits, and Juanita realized with crystalline clarity that she'd just chosen the most dangerous path possible. She couldn't wait to see where it led. The Bel Air mansion had 18 rooms and Juanita had seen exactly 3 of them before Warren informed her she was moving in. Not asked. Informed. Like her opinion on the matter was a courtesy he was extending out of politeness rather than necessity. You can't just kidnap me because my ex showed up at your wedding. She stood in the marble foyer, still wearing her coordinator headset and the sensible black dress she'd chosen specifically because it was supposed to make her invisible. Hard to be invisible when a crime boss decided you were his. I didn't kidnap you. Warren shrugged out of his tuxedo jacket and draped it over a chair that probably cost more than her entire apartment. You said you were exactly where you wanted to be. In front of 300 witnesses. That was. She gestured helplessly. I was panicking. Wesley was there and you were standing so close and I wasn't thinking clearly. So you're saying you didn't mean it? His eyes locked on hers with that focused intensity that made her skin feel too tight. Say the words, Juanita. Tell me you want to leave and I'll have Marcus drive you home right now. The offer should have been a relief. Instead it felt like a trap, like whichever answer she gave would reveal something she wasn't ready to admit. Her phone buzzed. Then again. Then continuously, an angry wasp trapped in her purse. She pulled it out and immediately wished she hadn't. 47 missed calls. 63 text messages. The first one from Victoria Langston's mother was threatening legal action. The second was threatening her business license. By the 10th, they'd moved on to creative descriptions of exactly how they'd destroy her career. Warren plucked the phone from her nerveless fingers and read the screen with the detached interest of someone reviewing a restaurant menu. Creative. Legally questionable, but creative. They're going to ruin me. Her voice came out small, defeated. Everything I built, 3 years of work, gone because Wesley showed up and I used it as an excuse to do what I've wanted to do since the first venue walkthrough. Warren set her phone on the entrance table, face down. The Langstons have lawyers. I have better ones. They have political connections. I have leverage they don't want exposed. Victoria's father took campaign contributions from shell corporations that would make the FBI very interested in his infrastructure votes. You can't just threaten everyone who inconveniences you. Why not? It's efficient. Because it's illegal. Because it's wrong. Because. She ran out of arguments that didn't sound naive when aimed at a man who'd built his fortune in gray areas the law couldn't quite define. The doorbell rang. Warren didn't move, just raised his voice slightly. Marcus. Handle it. Through the frosted glass, Juanita could see shapes. Lots of shapes. Voices rose in a cacophony she recognized. Press. Someone had tipped off the media. They're calling you the runaway bride's replacement. Warren's tone was conversational, almost amused. Speculation is you've been having an affair with me for months and today I finally chose you over Victoria. The narrative practically writes itself. That's insane. I was your wedding planner. That's all. Was. He stressed the word deliberately. Past tense. You live under my roof now. You accept my protection. And if Wesley or the Langstons or anyone else wants to come after you, they go through me first. The casual certainty in his voice should have terrified her. Instead, exhausted and reeling and still feeling the ghost of his hand wrapped around hers, Juanita heard herself ask the question she'd been avoiding for 3 months. Why? Why me? You could have any woman you wanted. Why blow up your own wedding for your wedding planner? Warren smiled, slow and dangerous. Because for 3 months I've watched you reorganize my entire life with ruthless efficiency while apologizing for taking up space. Because you're brilliant and competent and you've spent years making yourself smaller for men who couldn't handle your light. His voice dropped lower. And because when I grabbed your hand today, you didn't pull away. You held on tighter. For days living in Warren's mansion and Juanita was losing her mind. Not from fear or regret, but from the suffocating luxury of having nothing to do. Her business phone hadn't rung once. Her email was flooded with cancellations. Apparently being the woman who destroyed the Langston wedding made her radioactive in the event planning world. She needed coffee. Real coffee from her favorite place on Montana Avenue, not the imported Italian espresso Warren's private chef kept trying to force on her. She needed to feel normal for 20 minutes. Marcus can drive you. Warren didn't look up from the financial report spread across his home office desk. He'd been working since 5 a.m., conducting business in 3 languages while she pretended to sleep in the guest room that was twice the size of her old apartment. I can drive myself. I'm going 3 miles for coffee, not fleeing the country. Now he looked up. The thing about Warren's attention was it felt physical, like standing under stage lights. Wesley follows patterns. Coffee shops were always part of your routine. If he's watching, that's where he'll go. Wesley wouldn't dare. Not after what happened at the wedding. Warren's expression said he knew something she didn't, which seemed to be his permanent state. Humor me. Take Marcus. She should have listened. The coffee shop was exactly as she remembered. Exposed brick, mismatched furniture, the kind of aggressively hip atmosphere that charged $7 for a latte and made you feel sophisticated for paying it. Juanita ordered her usual vanilla oat milk situation and found a corner table where she could pretend her life wasn't imploding. She lasted 12 minutes before Wesley walked in. He looked worse than at the wedding. Unshaven, rumpled shirt, eyes red-rimmed from either crying or drinking or both. He spotted her immediately and relief flooded his face like she was rescue instead of restraining order. Thank God. I've been looking everywhere for you. His voice carried across the entire shop and every head turned. We need to talk about what happened. That man, that criminal, he manipulated you. I understand. I forgive you. Juanita's hand tightened around her coffee cup. You need to leave, Wesley. Right now. Not until you hear me out. He moved closer and she catalogued the exits like Warren had taught her during their late-night conversations when she couldn't sleep. 2 doors, both requiring her to get past Wesley first. He hasn't contacted you in months and suddenly he decides you're his? That's not love, Juanita. That's possession. I'm trying to save you. She stood, chair scraping loud against hardwood. I don't need saving. Especially not from you. You showed up at my workplace after I told you to leave me alone. That's not love either. I made mistakes. His voice rose and other customers started pulling out phones. But I changed. I went to therapy like you wanted. I'm better now. Give me another chance and I'll prove it. The door opened and Warren walked in like he'd been summoned. He wore dark jeans and a black sweater that probably cost $1,000, looking completely out of place among the startup entrepreneurs and yoga moms. But he moved through the space like he owned it, eyes locked on Wesley with predatory focus. She told you to leave. Warren's voice was quiet enough to be polite, cold enough to be terrifying. This is between me and Juanita. Wesley's bravado cracked around the edges. You have no right. I have every right. Warren stopped 3 feet away, close enough Juanita could smell his cologne, that dark expensive scent that was becoming dangerously familiar. I also have security footage of you following her from my house. I have your credit card records showing you've been in Santa Monica every day this week. I have enough evidence to violate your restraining order and put you in county lockup for 6 months. Wesley's face went pale. You're bluffing. Try me. Warren pulled out his phone, screen already showing a paused video feed. 1 call and LAPD will be here in 4 minutes. Or you can walk away now and I'll consider being merciful. The coffee shop had gone completely silent. Someone was definitely filming. This would be all over social media within the hour. Juanita should have been mortified. Instead she felt something dangerous unfurl in her chest as Wesley backed toward the door, realization finally hitting that he'd lost. Warren's hand found the small of her back, warm and possessive. His voice dropped to a whisper only she could hear. I told you to take Marcus. Warren cooked like he conducted business, with precise efficiency and complete confidence that the result would be exactly what he wanted. Juanita sat on a bar stool in his restaurant-quality kitchen watching him move between the stove and cutting board with the ease of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Your security has been following me. She said it casually, like they were discussing weather instead of surveillance. Of course they have. He didn't look up from the garlic he was mincing with professional speed. Wesley violated his restraining order 4 times in 5 days. You think I was going to wait for him to escalate? You could have told me. Would you have let me? Warren glanced over, eyebrow raised. You've spent the last week arguing about every protection I've offered. The armored car. The security detail. The lawyer I hired to handle the Langston situation. You want independence so badly you'd rather be vulnerable than accept help. It's not help when I don't have a choice. The words came out sharper than intended. You moved me into your house. You stationed guards outside my door. You're making decisions about my life without asking me. He set down the knife, turned to face her fully. You're right. I am. Because 4 days ago your ex showed up at a wedding and proved he doesn't respect boundaries. Because the Langstons have enough money to bury you in legal fees even if they don't win. Because in my world, hesitation gets people hurt. He moved closer, bracing his hands on the counter on either side of her stool, caging her in without touching. So yes, I'm making decisions. Until you're safe, until Wesley accepts that you're done with him, I'm going to be exactly this overbearing. And what if I tell you to stop? Then I'll stop. His voice softened, and somehow that was more dangerous than his intensity. One word, Juanita. Tell me you want out and I'll have Marcus pack your things tonight. You can go back to your apartment, rebuild your business, pretend the last week never happened. She should say it. Should reclaim her independence and her space and her life before this dangerous man consumed all of it. But Warren was close enough she could see the faint scar along his jawline, the one she'd noticed during their second meeting and never asked about. Close enough his cologne wrapped around her like smoke. Why do you care this much? Her voice came out whisper soft. You barely know me. I know you reorganized my entire filing system without being asked and color-coded my calendar by priority level. I know you take your coffee with vanilla and oat milk, but you drink it black rather than inconvenience someone. I know you apologize when other people bump into you. Warren's eyes tracked her face like he was memorizing it. I know you spent 3 years with a man who needed you weak and you're terrified I'm the same. Are you? No. His certainty was absolute. I don't need you weak, Juanita. I need you exactly as sharp and competent and uncompromising as you are. The difference between me and Wesley is he saw your strength as competition. I see it as the most attractive thing about you. Heat flooded her face. Warren noticed, of course he noticed, and his smile was pure satisfaction. Tell me about Fresno. She needed to change the subject before she did something stupid. You said you grew up there. He studied her for a long moment, then returned to the stove where something was simmering that smelled like garlic and wine and comfort. My mother raised 4 kids alone after my father died. We had nothing. Shared a 2-bedroom apartment, ate rice and beans most nights, wore clothes from church donation boxes. He stirred the sauce with practiced ease. I started working at 12. Produced stands, construction sites, anywhere that paid cash. By 16 I was running numbers for local bookies. By 20 I owned 3 legitimate businesses and twice as many illegitimate ones. The honesty was jarring. Most people sanitized their origin stories. Warren laid his out like evidence. Your mother must be proud. She thinks I'm an import-export. Which is technically true. He plated the pasta with the precision of a chef, brought it to the counter. My sisters know better but they don't ask questions. Family dinner is Sunday. You're coming. That sounds like another decision you're making for me. It is. Warren met her eyes over steam rising from handmade pasta in sauce that probably took hours. My family will love you or they'll pretend to for my sake. Either way, you'll eat the best Italian food in California and my grandmother will ask when we're getting married. Juanita nearly choked on nothing. We're not even together. No? He leaned across the counter. Then why haven't you left? Okay, be honest. Would you stay or would you run? Comment below because I need to know if you're as conflicted as Juanita right now. And if you're loving this story, hit subscribe so you never miss an upload. Juanita woke to 17 missed calls and the sick certainty that something had gone very wrong. Her car was in the shop. Not the shop. A body shop. Someone had slashed all 4 tires in the parking garage outside her office on Wilshire Boulevard, the office she'd been stupid enough to visit alone because she'd convinced herself Wesley had finally given up. Warren stood in her doorway still wearing yesterday's clothes, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Italian that sounded like threats wrapped in velvet. He'd been in San Francisco overnight for business. He'd flown back the moment Marcus called him. He hung up. How long were you there alone? 20 minutes. Maybe 30. She sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing the sweats she'd thrown on when Marcus had driven her home at midnight. I just needed to grab some files. client contracts from before everything happened. I thought maybe I could salvage a few relationships. You thought. Warren's voice was controlled in the way that meant he was furious. You thought you'd go to your office, alone, after dark, to a building where Wesley knows you keep files worth risking a restraining order violation. I had Marcus drop me off. Marcus waited in the car because you told him you'd only be 5 minutes. Warren crossed to the window, jaw tight. Wesley was in that garage, Juanita. We have him on security cameras. He waited until you went inside, slashed your tires, and left before you came back down. Her stomach dropped. He was right there. He's escalating. This isn't about winning you back anymore. This is about punishment. You chose me over him in front of 300 people. You humiliated him. Men like Wesley don't process rejection, they process revenge. So what do we do? Her voice came out smaller than intended. We? Warren turned and something in his expression made her throat tight. There is no we in this decision, Juanita. I'm having him arrested. I'm pressing charges for the restraining order violations. And I'm making sure the charges stick hard enough he spends the next 6 months in county lockup thinking about his choices. You can't just have someone arrested because they slashed my tires. Watch me. He pulled out his phone again. I have 4 violations documented. I have security footage. I have a prosecutor who owes me 3 favors and a judge who owes me 6. Wesley wanted to play games. He's about to learn I don't play, I win. The certainty in his voice should have been comforting. Instead it crystallized every fear she'd been avoiding since the wedding. This is what you do, isn't it? Someone crosses you and you destroy them. When they threaten what's mine. Yes. Warren's eyes met hers without apology. Every single time. I'm not a possession. No, you're not. You're the woman sleeping in my guest room because your ex is dangerous and obsessed. You're the reason I flew back from a meeting worth $20 million at 3 in the morning. His voice dropped. You're also the woman who hasn't left yet even though I keep giving you reasons to. Because I have nowhere else to go. My apartment isn't safe. My business is destroyed. The Langstons made sure no one in this city will hire me. Is that the only reason? Warren moved closer and she should back away but she didn't. Because it feels like you're looking for excuses to justify staying when the truth is simpler. What truth? That you're not scared of me. You're scared of how much you want this. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. 3 years you made yourself smaller for a man who needed you weak. Now you're here with someone who wants you sharp and you don't know how to handle it. Her breath caught. You're so sure of yourself. I'm sure of you. Warren's voice was quiet, certain. I've been sure since the cake tasting when you told the baker his design was mediocre and he needed to try harder. You were apologizing even as you said it, already making yourself less to avoid confrontation. But for 5 seconds before the apology, you were magnificent. Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Wesley. Of course it was Wesley. The message was 3 words that made her blood run cold. This isn't over. Warren read it over her shoulder and his expression went glacial. Marcus. He spoke into his phone without looking away from her. Get Detective Harrison on the line. Yes, now. Tell him I'm calling in every favor he owes me. He hung up and pulled Juanita to her feet. Pack a bag. Real bag this time, not the overnight thing you've been living out of. You're not staying in the guest room anymore. Where am I staying? With me. Where I can keep you safe. His hand tightened on hers. Wesley just made his last mistake. Warren's private office downtown occupied the entire top floor of a building that probably housed enough illegal activity to interest 3 federal agencies. Juanita sat in a leather chair that cost more than her first car while Warren spread files across his desk with the methodical precision of a prosecutor building a case. Except prosecutors didn't usually have this kind of information. Wesley Felton. 29. Assistant District Attorney in the San Diego branch. Father is Judge Marcus Felton, Superior Court, with enough political connections to make traffic tickets disappear. Warren flipped open the first folder and Juanita's stomach turned. Complaint filed by Rebecca Chen, 2019. Harassment, stalking, violation of restraining order. Case dismissed due to insufficient evidence. He slid another folder across. Sarah Martinez, 2020. Same pattern. Gifts, phone calls, showing up at her workplace. Her father was a deputy sheriff. Case went away quietly. How did you get these? Her voice shook. These are sealed records. I have resources. Warren's tone suggested she shouldn't ask questions she didn't want answered. There are 4 more. For women who tried to escape Wesley and couldn't because his father made their complaints disappear. You're not the first, Juanita. You're just the first one who had someone willing to fight back. She stared at the folders, each one a woman's nightmare wrapped in legal paperwork. All the times she'd told herself she was overreacting. All the times Wesley had convinced her his behavior was normal, that she was being dramatic, that if she just gave him another chance everything would be fine. Why didn't anyone stop him? Because his father is a judge who plays golf with the chief of police. Because the women he targeted were young, not wealthy, without the connections to fight back. Warren leaned against his desk. Because men like Wesley learn early that the rules don't apply to them if their family has enough power. And you're different? The question came out harsher than intended. You're telling me you follow rules? No. His honesty was brutal. I break them constantly. The difference is I don't pretend I'm entitled to people. I don't manipulate women into thinking their fear is irrational. His eyes locked on hers. And I've never in my life had to be told no twice. Juanita's hands trembled as she picked up another folder. Jessica Park. The complaint was dated 6 months before Juanita met Wesley. 3 restraining order violations. Hospital visit after Wesley showed up at her apartment and refused to leave until police arrived. Case dismissed with prejudice. He could have hurt me. The realization hit like cold water. All those times he showed up uninvited, all those times he backed me into corners verbally and I thought I was being too sensitive. He could have. He still could. Warren's voice was gentle now. That's why you're not leaving this building without security. That's why I'm not asking your permission to prosecute. Wesley's father made 5 cases disappear. He won't make this one vanish because I have leverage Judge Felton doesn't want exposed. What leverage? Campaign finance violations. 3 mistresses his wife doesn't know about. A DUI from 2015 that got buried so thoroughly even the arresting officer doesn't remember it. Warren's smile was cold. I've been building a file on Judge Felton since the day I realized his son was stalking you. Men like him think power makes them untouchable. They're wrong. You did this for me. It wasn't a question. I did this because Wesley needed to be stopped and no one else was going to do it. Warren moved around the desk, crouched in front of her chair so their eyes were level. But yes. I did it for you. Because you deserve to live without looking over your shoulder. Because you deserve better than a man who made you apologize for existing. Tears burned her eyes and she hated them, hated feeling weak, hated that Wesley had taken so much from her. Warren's hand caught hers. This isn't weakness. His thumb traced circles on her wrist, that gesture that was becoming familiar, grounding. You survived 3 years with someone who systematically undermined your confidence. You rebuilt your business from nothing. You're the strongest person I know. You barely know me. I know enough. His other hand came up to cup her face. I know you triple-check every detail because you don't trust anyone else to care as much as you do. I know you eat when you're stressed and forget to eat when you're focused. I know you're terrified of being controlled but you're more terrified of being alone. And I know that right now you're deciding whether to trust me or run. She should run. Every logical part of her brain screamed it. Warren was dangerous, possessive, the kind of man who solved problems with leverage and threats and resources that definitely weren't legal. But he was also the only person who'd seen Wesley for what he was. The only person who'd looked at her and seen strength instead of something to be managed. What happens after you destroy Wesley? Her voice was barely a whisper. What happens to us? That's your choice. Warren's certainty never wavered. I'm not Wesley. I won't chase you if you leave. But if you stay, you need to understand what that means. You'll be mine and I'll be yours. Equal partnership in a very unequal world. His hand tightened on hers. I won't diminish you. I'll guard you. There's a difference. Show me. Warren's bedroom was nothing like Juanita expected. She'd imagined cold minimalism, black leather, the kind of aggressive masculinity men like him usually favored. Instead she found warm wood, soft lighting, books stacked on nightstands, and windows overlooking the city lights that made Los Angeles look like fallen stars. You're sure? He said it at the doorway, giving her one last chance to retreat to the safety of the guest room and whatever fragile professional distance they were still pretending existed. She was terrified. She was also done being afraid. I'm sure. Warren closed the door and the click of the lock felt like a decision she couldn't take back. He moved toward her slowly, giving her time to change her mind, and somehow that patience was more devastating than urgency would have been. Wesley had always rushed, always pushed, always made her feel like her hesitation was a failing. Warren stopped inches away and waited. She closed the distance. Kissing him was nothing like kissing Wesley. Wesley had kissed like he was proving something, like her response was validation he needed. Warren kissed like he already knew she wanted this and was savoring the confirmation. His hand slid into her hair, tilting her head back, and the control in the gesture made her knees weak. Tell me what you want. His voice was rough against her mouth. Everything. The word escaped before she could think better of it, raw and honest in a way she'd never been with anyone. His smile was pure satisfaction. Good. Because I don't do halfway. He wasn't lying. Warren undressed her with the same focused intensity he brought to everything, like memorizing each piece of revealed skin was crucial information he'd need later. When her hands fumbled with his shirt buttons he caught her wrists gently. Slowly. We have all night. His eyes tracked her face. I want to watch you realize you're safe here. I'm in bed with a man the FBI calls untouchable. Safe isn't exactly the word. Safer than you've ever been. Warren released her wrists, let her continue unbuttoning his shirt. Because I see you, Juanita. Not the version you think you should be. Not the woman who makes herself smaller. I see who you are when you forget to apologize for taking up space. She pushed his shirt off his shoulders and froze. Scars traced his ribs, his chest, a roadmap of violence she'd suspected but never confirmed. Her fingers hovered over the worst one, a puckered mark near his heart that looked like a knife had come too close. Fresno. Age 17. Guy didn't like that I was moving into his territory. Warren's voice was matter-of-fact. He stabbed me in an alley behind a liquor store. I survived. He didn't. You killed him. Self-defense. Technically. His hand covered hers, pressing her palm flat against his chest where his heart beat steady and strong. Does it change anything? It should. She should be horrified, should recognize this as the moment to leave before she got in too deep. But Warren's past was written on his skin in scars and survival, and somehow that honesty was more real than Wesley's polished perfection had ever been. Does it? He asked again, patient. No. His kiss this time was different, deeper, claiming. He lifted her easily and her legs wrapped around his waist on instinct. The bed was soft when he laid her down but Warren was solid above her, all controlled power and focused intensity. This is the last chance to change your mind. His voice was strained now, control fraying at the edges. Once we do this, you're mine. I don't share. I don't do casual. You'll be the woman in my bed, at my table, in my life. Everyone will know it. Good. Her hands slid up his back, feeling muscles shift under scarred skin. I'm done hiding. What happened next erased every comparison. Wesley had treated sex like a transaction, something he gave her in exchange for emotional labor. Warren made love like he was conducting research, learning exactly what made her gasp, what made her arch into him, what made her forget every reason this was complicated. Say my name. He whispered it against her throat, her collarbone, lower. I want to hear you say it. Warren. It came out broken, desperate. Please. Please what? His smile against her skin was wicked. Use your words, Juanita. Tell me exactly what you want. And she did. For the first time in 3 years she asked for what she wanted without apology, without softening it, without making it easier for someone else to digest. Warren gave her everything she demanded and then more, taking her apart with methodical precision until she was shaking and he was the only thing holding her together. Afterwards, wrapped in sheets that probably cost a fortune, Warren's hand traced lazy patterns on her spine. You okay? Better than okay. She pressed her face against his chest, listening to his heartbeat slow. That was different. He finished for her. Because you weren't performing. You were present. Wesley wanted me grateful. The words tumbled out in the dark honesty of post-intimacy. Like sex was a gift he was giving me instead of something we were sharing. Warren's hand tightened on her hip, possessive. I don't want your gratitude. I want your trust. I want you uninhibited. I want you demanding and uncompromising and taking up as much space as you need. That's a lot to want. Get used to it. His voice was already drowsy, satisfied. I want all of you, Juanita. The sharp edges, the competence, the woman who reorganizes filing systems without permission. Everything you've been hiding. She should be terrified of that level of intensity. Instead she felt something dangerous and warm unfurl in her chest. Sunday dinner with your family. Her voice was soft. What if they hate me? They won't. Warren pressed a kiss to her temple. But if they did, I'd still choose you. The house in Koreatown was nothing like Warren's Bel Air mansion. It was small, loud, and smelled like garlic and tomatoes and something baking that made Juanita's mouth water from the driveway. 3 cars were already parked on the street, music poured from open windows, and she could hear arguing in rapid Korean before Warren even opened the front door. Your family is Korean. She'd assumed Italian from the pasta, from his last name, from everything. My stepfather was Italian. Died when I was 8, but my mother kept the name because it was easier than explaining. Warren's hand found the small of her back. My biological father was Korean. Dead before I have memories of him. Ready? No. Good. He smiled. They'll like you more if you're nervous. Shows you care about their opinion. The door opened before Warren could knock and a tiny woman who barely reached his shoulder launched herself at him with a stream of Korean that sounded like equal parts affection and accusation. Warren responded in the same language, his whole demeanor shifting into something warmer, younger, less controlled. English, Ma. We have a guest. He switched languages smoothly and the woman's sharp eyes landed on Juanita with an assessment that felt like an X-ray. So you're the one. Warren's mother was maybe 5 feet tall but her presence filled the doorway. The wedding planner who made my son cancel his wedding in front of 300 people. I didn't make him. Juanita's voice came out defensive. He made that choice himself. Good answer. The woman's face split into a smile. Call me Elena. Come inside before the food gets cold and my mother starts complaining. Inside was chaos. Warren's 3 sisters descended immediately, all talking over each other in a mixture of Korean and English. The youngest, maybe 19, grabbed Juanita's hand. Is it true you told Victoria Langston her orchid placement was basic? Her eyes were bright with mischief. Because that's iconic. She's been insufferable since high school. I didn't say basic. I suggested alternative arrangements. You made her cry. The middle sister, late 20s, grinned. Warren showed us the security footage. Best thing I've ever seen. Why do you have security footage of the bride crying? Juanita turned to Warren, who had the grace to look slightly sheepish. I have security footage of everything. It's a safety precaution. It's paranoia. The oldest sister, early 30s and visibly pregnant, hugged Juanita like they'd known each other for years. I'm Michelle. The Chaos twins are Sophie and Grace. Welcome to family dinner where privacy goes to die. They swept her into the dining room where an elderly woman sat at the head of the table like a queen holding court. Warren's grandmother. She spoke no English according to the whispered warning from Sophie, but her eyes tracked Juanita with the sharp intelligence of someone who understood everything without translation. Sit. Elena pointed to the chair next to Warren. My mother wants to look at you properly. The table was covered in dishes. Kimchi, bulgogi, japchae, and yes, pasta with red sauce that smelled exactly like what Warren had made her. The combination should have been strange, but somehow it worked. Two cultures blended into something uniquely theirs. So. Michelle leaned forward, ignoring her husband's attempt to stop her. How serious is this? Because Warren doesn't bring women home. Ever. The last girlfriend we met was 6 years ago and she lasted 3 months. It's serious. Warren's hand found Juanita's under the table, squeezed once. Unless she decides otherwise. 4 pairs of eyes turned to her expectantly. Even Warren's grandmother leaned forward slightly, waiting. It's complicated. Juanita tried for diplomacy. We met through work and things developed quickly. He blew up his wedding for you. Grace, the youngest, wasn't letting her off easy. That's not complicated. That's dramatic and romantic, and we need details. Grace. Elena's voice carried warning. Let the girl eat before you interrogate her. But Warren's grandmother spoke then, rapid Korean directed at Warren with a tone that suggested questions. Warren responded with what sounded like reassurance, but his grandmother wasn't satisfied. The conversation went back and forth, other family members chiming in, and Juanita sat there feeling completely lost until Michelle leaned over. She's asking if you're pregnant. Standard grandmother question. Don't take it personally. I'm not. Juanita's face flamed. We've only been together a week. Technically longer if you count the 3 months of eye contact during wedding planning. Sophie grinned. We heard about that too. Very intense apparently. I was doing my job. You were avoiding him. Warren's voice was amused. Every time I walked into a room you found urgent business elsewhere. Because you were getting married. To someone else. Looking at you felt inappropriate. And yet you looked. His thumb traced circles on her wrist under the table, that gesture that was becoming their private language. Every single time. The grandmother spoke again, and this time Warren's response was longer, more serious. Michelle translated quietly. He's telling her you make him happy. That you're strong enough to handle his world. That he knows it's fast but he's sure. Grandma's saying if you hurt him she knows people. Juanita should be terrified. Instead she looked at Warren's grandmother and spoke directly to her, even though the words would need translation. I won't hurt him. I promise. The old woman studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. Whatever test Juanita had been taking, apparently she passed. The table erupted in conversation again, plates were passed, and somehow in the chaos of Warren's loud, loving, complicated family, Juanita felt something she hadn't felt in years. Safe. Warren's hand tightened on hers. Told you they'd love you. Your grandmother threatened me. That means she approves. He pressed a kiss to her temple, unbothered by his sister's delighted gasps. If she didn't like you, she'd just ignore you completely. The call came at 3 in the morning. Warren's phone lit up the darkness and Juanita felt him go rigid beside her before he even answered. He spoke in clipped sentences, his voice the cold professional tone she recognized from business calls, and her stomach dropped before he even hung up. Wesley's out on bail. Warren was already moving, pulling on clothes with efficient speed. He violated the restraining order again. Broke into the house 20 minutes ago. Here. Panic clawed up her throat. He's here right now. Security has him contained in the East Wing. He can't get to you. Warren's voice was calm but his eyes were lethal. Marcus is calling the police. This time there's no father with connections to make it disappear. This time he goes to county lockup and stays there. He came here for me. The realization was ice water. He knew I'd be here. Of course he knew. Warren cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. Men like Wesley don't give up. They escalate. That's why I've had triple security on this house since you moved in. That's why every entrance has cameras and every window has sensors. I've been waiting for him to make this mistake. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Marcus appeared in the doorway, expression grim. Police are 5 minutes out. He's demanding to see Juanita. Says he just wants to talk. Absolutely not. Warren's response was immediate. But Juanita was already moving, pulling on Warren's discarded shirt over her sleep clothes. I need to see him. I need to end this. You don't owe him closure. I'm not doing it for him. Her voice was steady now, certain. I'm doing it for me. 3 years I let Wesley make me feel like I was overreacting, like my fear was irrational. I need him to see that I'm done apologizing. Warren studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Fine. But I'm there with you. And if he makes one move I don't like, Marcus removes him permanently. They found Wesley in the main foyer, held between 2 security guards who looked like they wanted an excuse to hurt him. He'd lost weight since the wedding. His clothes were rumpled, his eyes wild with the kind of desperation that came from losing control he'd always assumed was his right. Juanita. Relief flooded his face when he saw her. Thank God. Tell them this is a misunderstanding. Tell them we need to talk privately. There's nothing private between us anymore. She descended the stairs with Warren a step behind her, a solid presence at her back. You broke into someone's home, Wesley. Again. You violated a restraining order. Again. This isn't love. This is obsession. I'm trying to save you. His voice rose. From him. From this life. You think he cares about you? He's a criminal, Juanita. He's using you. No. Her voice cut through his building hysteria. You're the one who used me. 3 years you made me smaller because my success threatened you. 3 years you convinced me my instincts were wrong. I found the files, Wesley. The other women. Rebecca, Sarah, Jessica. All the complaints your father buried. You've done this before. His face went pale. Those were misunderstandings. Those women were. What? Crazy? Emotional? Overreacting? She took another step down and Wesley flinched. I was never the problem. You were. You are. And I'm done letting you make me doubt that. Sirens wailed outside. Red and blue lights flashed through the windows. Wesley's desperation transformed into rage. You'll regret this. He lunged forward but security held him easily. You think you're better than me? You think he won't get bored and throw you away? You're nothing special, Juanita. You never were. Warren moved then, stepping between them with such sudden violence that Wesley jerked back. But Warren didn't touch him. He simply existed in that space with absolute authority, and when he spoke his voice was soft enough only the four of them could hear. Let me be very clear. Juanita is the only reason you're still breathing. She wanted to face you, so I gave her that. But if you ever contact her again, if you even think her name, I will use every resource I have to destroy you so completely your father's connections won't matter. Do you understand? You can't threaten me. That wasn't a threat. Warren's smile was terrifying. That's a guarantee. You had 3 years with someone extraordinary and you wasted it making her apologize for existing. Now she's mine and I protect what's mine. Police flooded through the front door then. Detective Harrison, the one Warren had mentioned owing favors, took one look at Wesley and shook his head. Breaking and entering, violation of restraining order, trespassing. He pulled out handcuffs. Mr. Felton, you're under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. Wesley was still shouting threats as they dragged him out. Warren turned to Juanita, his hand finding hers automatically. You okay? Better than okay. And she meant it. Watching Wesley being led away in handcuffs, seeing his power finally stripped, she felt 3 years of accumulated fear drain away. I'm free. Not yet. Warren pulled her close. You still have to testify. Judge Felton will fight this. It'll be ugly. Good. Her voice was steel. Let it be ugly. Those other women deserve to see him face consequences. I deserve to face him in court and win. Warren's expression shifted into something that looked like pride. You're sure? Because once we do this, there's no going back. Everyone will know about us, about him, about everything. I'm sure. She wrapped her arms around his waist, letting herself lean into his strength. I spent 3 years being afraid. I'm done with that. The trial took 6 weeks. Wesley's father hired expensive lawyers who tried every tactic to discredit Juanita. They called her vindictive, manipulative, a woman scorned who'd invented harassment claims. But Warren's lawyers were better, and the evidence was overwhelming. 4 other women testified. Security footage showed clear patterns of stalking. Wesley's own text messages condemned him. When the judge granted a permanent restraining order and sentenced Wesley to 18 months for the violations, Juanita felt something massive lift from her chest. Warren was waiting outside the courtroom, exactly where he'd been every day of the trial. He pulled her into his arms without words. And you thought it was over. Warren has one more move to make, and it's going to leave you absolutely breathless. If you want more stories like this, more mafia romance, more dangerous love, subscribe now. You're going to want to be here for what comes next. 3 days later, he took her to Catalina Island. The beach was private, exclusive, the kind of place Warren's money bought access to. They walked along the shoreline as the sun set, and Juanita realized with sudden clarity where they were. This is where your wedding was supposed to happen. It is. Warren stopped, turned to face her with that intensity that still made her breath catch. I had this whole thing planned. The perfect setting, the perfect timing, the perfect proposal for the wrong woman. And now? Now I'm here with the right woman and I don't have a speech prepared. His hands cupped her face. I'm here with someone who challenges me, who doesn't diminish herself, who faced down her worst fear in a courtroom and won. I'm here with you, Juanita, and that's the only thing I'm sure about. He pulled a ring from his pocket. Simple, elegant, nothing like the ostentatious diamond he'd given Victoria. I don't do halfway. You know that about me. If you say yes, you're choosing this life. My family, my world, the danger that comes with who I am. His voice was steady. But you're also choosing a partnership. Equal say in everything. Someone who sees your strength and wants more of it, not less. She looked at the ring, at Warren, at the beach where his perfect plan had exploded into something real and complicated and infinitely better. Yes. He slid the ring onto her finger and kissed her like he'd been waiting his entire life for permission. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Juanita laughed against his mouth. Your family is going to say I told you so about this being fast. My family is going to throw a party that lasts 3 days. Warren's smile was pure joy. My grandmother already picked out her dress. She knew you were going to propose? She told me to. 2 weeks ago. Said you were the one and I'd be an idiot to wait. His hands slid into her hair. Turns out she was right. They stayed on the beach until the stars came out, planning a future that was theirs alone. No more apologizing. No more making herself smaller. Just Juanita and Warren and the dangerous, beautiful life they'd build together. Later, much later, wrapped in sheets in their hotel room, Warren's phone buzzed with a news alert. Wesley Felton's father had resigned from the bench amid ethics investigations. 3 more women had come forward with complaints. The case that had seemed impossible to win was breaking wide open. You did this. Juanita turned to Warren. The investigation, the evidence, all of it. We did this. He pulled her closer. You testified. You were brave when it mattered. I just made sure people paid attention. By destroying a judge's career. By making sure powerful men face consequences. His voice was unapologetic. Wesley learned it from his father. Break the cycle, change the pattern. She should be bothered by the casual way he wielded power. Instead she kissed him, tasting victory and possibility and the future they'd claimed together. Outside, waves crashed against the shore where Warren's perfect wedding had become something better. Where a mafia boss had grabbed her hand in front of everyone who mattered and declared she was his. The best decision he'd ever made. The smartest thing she'd ever chosen.